What up, you guys? I hope you're doing well. We're here for our weekly manifestation oracle message. We're just taking a look at the week ahead to see, how we need to approach our goals and our dreams and our manifestations. What kind of consciousness do we need to hold? Where do we need to focus our attention this week to propel our dreams forward? And what can Spirit tell us to encourage us? Our first card out is Have Faith. By the way, I love this deck. So this is super cheesy. It's so Florida. It's called the Magical Mermaids and Dolphins Oracle deck, and it's specifically like a manifestation oracle deck, but it's by Doreen Virtue. It's one of their, the out of print decks, because the decks that she did a lot of oracle and tarot with other authors, and they collaborated, and a version of those are still in print, but this is one of the ones that's out of print now. So I love to use this for our oracle readings because it's specifically about approaching your goals. But I also pulled out the Dreaming Way Tarot to get a little bit more depth and clarification as well. So we have faith. Your prayers are manifesting. Remain positive and follow your guidance. Now, in the 4 phases of creation that we learn about in Kabbalah, we learn that manifestation, when you put it in parallel to the creation formula of the original creator, the creation, it goes in 4 stages. And it can be called the 4 phases of creation, or also known as the 4 phases of desire. Because without desire, we cannot manifest anything. The desire is like the rocket fuel for the whole thing. So it all starts with desire. So creation phase 1 is when it's called a passive desire. So this is when you get an idea for something, or maybe somebody suggests something to you, and you're like, that sounds pretty good, and you're having fun, dreaming about it and, talking about it, getting the energy that way, but you're not really serious enough to actually go after it and try it yet. So that's a passive desire. An example of this would be if you're really wanting to be single and you have no interest in dating, and then all of a sudden everyone's interested in you and you're not interested in anyone who's interested in you. So it's a passive desire. It's you've got offers and suitors, but you're meh, Or if you are, say, at an event, you're meeting and greeting, and one of the hosts of the event, one of the people working the event is trying to give you all this bottled water as part of hospitality. And you're just I don't want to carry all this around. I'm not really thirsty. I don't know what to do with this water. But just yeah, okay, thank you. It's great. Didn't really ask for it. Didn't really want it, but I appreciate it. Or when somebody gives you a big gift and you feel it's probably gonna come with strings attached, and you're thank you. Didn't really want it, but all right. So it's you're okay, whatever. But it's not oh, this was my idea, I'm going after this, I want to have it. So this can also parallel as the initial spark of the idea, but you're just not serious about it yet. You're excited, but not serious. Creation phase 2 is when the desire becomes active. So this is an active desire. And this is when you're you know what? I think that this idea has value. And I feel a real yearning to want to make this happen and pursue this thing. And you're you know what? I feel this could really bring a lot of goodness to the world. And I'm really on fire about sharing this. So come what may, come hell or high water, this is me. This is my purpose. This is my passion project. I'm going to do it. And so then you start doing all the research, and you're staying up late, you're getting up early, and you're putting all your effort into it, and you're excited about it, and you're putting in going the extra mile, you're spending the time, you're trying to do things the right way, just adding, putting your attention into the details. You're just really, your whole heart and soul is in the whole thing, and you're putting maximum effort and genuine heartfelt effort and strength behind your actions, determination. So then there is creation phase 3, when the light is sort of removed from the situation, and you've been working on this thing, and there's no end in sight, and it's too late to turn back now, and you're losing steam, and there's no real results, and there's no glorious fanfare around you anymore. Nobody's paying attention anymore. You're just like on your own, right? Think of a road trip through the Great Plains. There's like nothing to see for miles, and you're like, so sick of the playlist. The radio stations are cutting in and out. You're like, when is this going to be over? So the creation phase 3 is this moment where you're like, why is this plateauing? Why is there crickets? Like, I'm putting in all the effort, in the movie where the character, it's like you've even done the things that you think are being asked for you, even beyond, you faced your fear, and you told the truth, and you said what you needed to say, and you put yourself out on the line, and you took a chance, you took a gamble, all the things that the hero does that, it's like, ooh, that was a big risk, but they sort of faced their fear, or they fought the dragon, they overcame themselves in some way. So you do that, and not only does it just everything falls through, maybe even it starts everything starts to get worse, and you're like, oh my gosh, it feels like my efforts are taking me backwards, and all of a sudden things are going wrong. You feel like everything's just falling apart, and it almost seems like everything's just going to be ruined. But you're like, you know what? No, I don't care if this has the result that I'm expecting or not. I have a greater reason, more than just my own glory and success here. I feel like this idea is needed by others, and I have a calling to do this, and I can't let it go. I can't rest until it's done. And you're like, you know what? No matter what, I feel like if the creator doesn't want me to do this, then come hell or high water, you're going to have to stop me, show me so clearly, completely thwart me. I'm going to fight with all my might to do this thing, and you're going to have to really sabotage me to stop me. But I'm going to assume that the creator's behind me, and that with my faith, anything is possible. And this is really what it is, the big test. It's like the initiation, and it's a talisman moment. And so if you can stick with it, even in the face of failure and ruin and humiliation, and everything looks like it's not going to work out, everything looks like it's not going to go your way, and instead of getting reactive, instead of getting mad, instead of losing hope and losing faith and becoming despondent, you're like, the creator's with me. The creator has a plan. The creator can take control of the situation. I'm going to keep believing. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep giving myself to this. And I'm going to even go further. I'm going to double down. I'm going to give even more passion, even more perseverance, even more determination. I'm going to get smarter and more intentional. And I'm going to keep, honing in and editing where I need to, but I'm not giving up. And so that moment where it all seems for naught, and you have the faith to keep going, that's usually the moment where something opens up and allows for the fulfillment of the manifestation, which is phase 4, the fulfillment of the manifestation. So many times we can sort of play with the universal laws and force our manifestation to happen, but when it comes at it's not like a ripe grape picked at the right time. If you force the timing, sometimes you get the manifestation, but it's not fulfilling. You don't feel the fulfillment of it. You're like, oh, well, I got my thing, but it just I don't know, it wasn't as satisfying as I thought. That's because you didn't build the vessel. It wasn't complete. Your vessel wasn't completely prepared to receive that thing in such a way that you could really deeply appreciate it. It's because we can't receive light that we don't earn from the universe, from the cosmos, from the creator. It gives us this phenomenon, and we talked about it a little bit in last night's video, called bread of shame. And so when you keep receiving light that you don't earn, it makes you feel bad about yourself. It makes you feel resentful, right? A good example of this is if you have a friend who's like almost too generous and they're always putting themselves out too much and they're giving you so much that you're not asking for, and it just feels off, it feels weird, and you're like, I'm starting to feel bad about this, and it's starting to turn you off in them. Or like if a parent over gives to their children and their children become spoiled and sort of like hateful, and they like hate their parents and they're all resentful even though the parents have been totally sweet and trying to give to them, but the parents have been over giving and, you know, kind of giving them cavities with too much sweetness, right? So, you know, and it's the same phenomenon when we get energy and like confidence from, like, say, drugs, you know, and you get this high from doing the drug initially, but then when the drug wears off, you feel even more depressed and even less confident and even more like, ugh, you know. I don't know if you guys have ever been in a situation where you've hit the slopes, if you know what I mean. It's not really my thing, but I have in my 40 years on Earth been skiing a couple of times, and it's just like, ugh, like, I don't know. It's such like a horrible tiredness and depression, and it's not worth the initial, like, I don't know. At least they don't make it like they used to anyway. So it's too dangerous these days. There's too much poison out there. But same example applies, you know, or say, for instance, someone trying to have a one night stand. It's like, oh, it's all exciting when you're drunk and in the moment. But like, as soon as it's all over, it's like, I don't even know this person. I'm not that attracted. I don't care about them at all. And you're just like, oh, you know, kind of disgusted with yourself. You know, the next day it's like, or whatever, they're, you know, parting ways. It's just like awkward and like, it's like taking that high of that like light and snatching it without earning it. You don't have the vessel to appreciate. Whereas if you're in a relationship with a person and you are like, you know, you've been dating for a long time or a while or whatever, and you decide to, like, this is, you know, the right time to start taking it to that level, then that's much more satisfying, and there's so much more excitement and depth there than, you know, just rushing into something, right? And then that leaves you just feeling, whereas if you've built the vessel and you really appreciate and you've earned, then it's something that can, you know, deepen the bond and create more fulfillment. So the Have Faith card, your prayers are manifesting, remain positive, and follow your guidance. I wanted to give you guys that lesson on creation phase 3, or the creation phases, because I believe that we might be feeling like we're in creation phase 3 right now, where we're like, oh my gosh, I have done all that I know to do. And I feel like I've been trying to like do the work on myself, the inner transformation, even things that aren't related. Like I've been trying to heal like my mother issues and my father issues and my, you know, releasing my ex and forgiving and learning and doing all the things. I've been trying to do it all. And where is it? When is it going to come through? You know, and I think we just have to keep the faith and stop looking for the results and just say, you know what, the result is that I am going to be the result. I'm going to be the cause. I'm just going to keep doing this, whether there's a result or not, you know. And what you can do, and what I've been doing recently, you know, some days when I get discouraged about finding what is going to give me the breakthrough in the algorithm for this channel. And sometimes I get discouraged, and I just say, you know what, even if hardly anybody sees this video, the creator sees it. God sees it. And these videos are for God, the creator. And so as long as I keep showing up and make the videos for the creator, then that's ultimately what matters. But at the end of the day, what I want is for the people that need these messages to connect with them, right? I want to be helpful to people. You know, I remember a time in my life when everything was chaos and void, and darkness hovered over the deep and all of that, you know, and I felt isolated and at the mercy of circumstance, and I felt afraid and distressed and despair and frustrated and sad and out of control. And I mean, I wasn't like some wild person, like leading a wild life. It's just that like my life just felt chaotic. And I'd grown up with a lot of like unrealized trauma. And so this added to the chaos, but I didn't realize that like it was about spiritual growth and a shift in consciousness. Like I was a person of faith, but I didn't have my own spiritual practice yet. And when I became more aware and more present and more conscious, and I started having a spiritual practice, and I started working on myself and doing the healing work and searching out my shortcomings and my patterns and all those things, when I started changing and transforming those things, that actually took all that chaos and actually shifted that energy into my intentions and my manifestations, and good things started to happen, and my life became so much more harmonious and blessed and charmed. And I felt like my prayers were being answered, and I felt for the first time inner peace, and I felt uplifted, and I was able to feel joy for no reason. There was a time in my life where I was so just depressed and frustrated with life, and I didn't feel like this was my true self. I felt like, gosh, I wish I could be happy for no reason. And that was a dream that became my goal. And I wrote it on a Post-it, and I put it on my mirror. And I remember looking at that thinking, I can't imagine being in a state where I can feel happy for no reason, but I believe that I can get there if I keep at it and keep the faith and keep working on myself and not give up on myself. And I'm here to tell you that most days, maybe not January 2025, but most days I spend most of that day happy and joyous for no reason. So have faith. Just because you're facing obstacle and challenge right now does not mean that you are not going to succeed. Keep going, keep persevering. One of the things, the initiations of the soul is to reveal perseverance and determination and faith. And so, when we have a big light to reveal, the opponent gives us that much more resistance, that much more opposition. If everything was just coming easily to you and you just had like every door just open, then there's no resistance and there's no opponent working against you. So it might mean that you're, doing something all right, but like if you have a grand purpose that is going to reveal a lot of light in the world, and it's like a God-given purpose, you can bet that you will be met with challenge. You can bet that the opponent is trying to keep you off track. The chick who is just doing this thing, or that guy that's doing the thing that you're like, why are they so successful? Like they're not even doing anything that like helps another person. It's just, and they're so successful and it comes so easy to them. It's because the opponent doesn't care. They're like, oh great, this person's distracted in the world system and they're just in it for the money and they're just distracting themselves. They're not gonna be any threat to me. They spend their life just kind of like zombies, like, a consumer in the cog in the wheel, but you're not. You're awake. And when you create things, it has an effect on people. And when you awaken and your mindset changes, your energy affects the people around you. And you become influential and you can lead more people to the light. And that's bad for the darkness and the opponent. So the opponent tries to do everything it can to slow you down. The irony is, the way that the game is rigged, is that the more the opponent pushes us away from our goal, the stronger and more determined and powerful we become. So even though the opponent is not good, the opponent has an assigned job from the creator to do the dirty work, but which ultimately is the thing that hoists the opponent by his own petard, but ends up exalting us in the end, because it's exactly the pressure that we need to evolve to crack through our negativity and weakness and fear and actually awaken the light of our soul. So don't give up. Don't think you're cursed. Don't think that it's never going to work out. In fact, it doesn't even matter if it seems like things are failing, Because if you don't let yourself get discouraged, and you believe with all your heart that even though you may not see the results you want to see now, that something, somehow, somewhere, even if it's not in the situation, is going to work out and it's going to play out for the highest good of all in the end. And when you do that, what happens is that even if, say, you're trying to start a business and that business fails, or you put all your heart into a relationship that you thought was the real deal this time and it goes south, what happens is if you still believe in yourself and you don't fall into despair and you know that everything's happening for you and not against you, and that everything's playing out for the highest good, and even this disappointment is going to be serving to protect you and exalt you in the end, and you're like, you know what? If not this, something better, and you can keep that hope in your heart, then that means that all the energy that you put into that project or that relationship or that house that you thought you were going to be able to buy or build or whatever, that light, that energy goes into a spiritual bank account that's saved for you, like rollover minutes, rollover gas points. And that is in a vault, and it's your assets, your spiritual assets. And that will, when the right thing happens and the vessel is ready and the light is ready to be received by that vessel, and then the timing aligns perfectly and the real thing does come along, all that light that you thought you spilled out and lost forever is actually waiting for you as like a big bonus. And it's going to make the thing, when the right time comes, that much more beautiful and wonderful and fulfilling. You're going to appreciate it so much more, and it's going to be that much more successful because you didn't lose faith. You didn't lose your belief. Now, if you give up and if you fall into despondency and despair and you lose faith and you lose hope and you get reactive and you start downward spiral reacting to the failure, that's when you lose the light. That's when you lose your points to the other side of the scale. And the light goes over to the dark, and they're like, we won this round. Now the opponent, but while we're on this rant, the opponent has is manifested in two ways. The opponent has a male Satan and a female Satan. Now, the male Satan shows up first with the initial trap to trick you up into some sort of reactive behavior, whether it be temperamental or lusty or what have you. The little devil gets you into the trap and gets you to make the mistake. That's the initial points one. The real trickster is the feminine Satan, who comes in after the fact and tries to get double the points by making you feel like shit. You loser, you're never gonna win, you're never gonna succeed, you're just getting older and less relevant, no one's ever gonna love you. You know what I mean? Like all of those like horrible voices are like, it's never gonna work out, it's too late. Like all of those voices make you just go into a spiral of like self-loathing and beating yourself up and shame and guilt and hopelessness. That is the feminine Satan, and that takes even more of your light. So be mindful that whenever the Satan gets you once, you can guarantee that the 1-2 punch is that horrible feeling of remorse, or not remorse, but regret, guilt, all of that. It's good to feel remorse. It's good to feel the guilt when you can pair that with remorse and repair. But when you just feel absolute shame and self-loathing, that is actually like a sin, and will take you into a downward spiral that separates you from the light of the Creator, just like in the original fall of Adam and Eve. Okay, so this is 23 minutes for the one card. Whoa. So what we got next? We have watch your thoughts. Your consciousness is the seed level of every action that you take. So make sure when you start to take action that you are in a consciousness of that certainty in the Creator, that you're feeling like you have more than enough, that you're whole, that you're not doing something from a needy place. Like, I need this to work out. This has to work. Like, you can't be in that neediness. You have to be in certainty. If it works out, great. If not, I guess that's okay too. I'm going to give it all I've got. I'm going to care. I'm going to put my heart and soul into it. and let the chips fall where they may. But what I want to do is I'm not going to do this so I can receive for myself alone. I want to do this to share this solution, this good thing, this value with others. I want to help spread light into the world, right? That mentality, that consciousness is everything when you take action. If you take action from a state of desperation or neediness or fear or insecurity, lack, doubt, if you take action from disgust or hatred or anger, anything that you do, even if it's not related, right? Say you're all pissed off about something and you're answering an email to another person about a totally different thing, and you're coming off just fine. You're not saying anything salty or saucy, but there's some kind of chaos that's still in the residue of your aura when you're sending this thing off, and that is going to get into that email. So wait until you're in a better mindset and a better energy to send the email. Say you're still stewing about this other thing that happened. Maybe you just looked on Facebook for 1 second. I'm convinced Facebook is literally the garage sale of personalities. It is horrible. Horrible. It's a horror. I wouldn't even still have Facebook if it weren't for the fact that, oddly enough, even though no one acknowledges me publicly on Facebook and no one participates with my posts, that is the biggest converting click over. People actually do click over from Facebook, and people sign up to things from Facebook. It's so weird. It's so weird. But anyway, back to, you're all Jethro pissed me off in Facebook. How could they think this way? Don't they see? And then you're like, oh, I need to restock my shampoo. I'm going to order that from Amazon. So you're in a stew. You go to Amazon, you order your shampoo, and then little do you know that it's on back order. And for whatever reason, just because it's through this one seller, it's this thing gets delayed for a week. You're like, whatever happened to my shampoo? All this time is wasted. It's the chaos gets into everything. Whereas you get in a state of wholeness and fulfillment. Creator, let thy will be done. But in the meantime, I'm going to do 100% of my best, everything I can to show up in every way possible and do my half. And so then you just have to let go and surrender. But you want to be in a consciousness of love, of creation, of sharing, of building someone up, not tearing someone down, be in a positive state of consciousness. You want to share the consciousness that the creator would have, right? Cause consciousness, not affect consciousness. We're not affected, we're being the cause, right? So that is going to make the things that you put your hand to blessed and fruitful, and at the very least harmonious. It's going to get you in that flow state. All right, healing heart was another card that came up with that. You're a powerful healer, so keep up the great work. Now, it is my absolute belief that in this moment, if you are a healer, if you are a light worker, if you are an empathic person, a sensitive person, an intuitive person, a spiritually inclined person, people need us now more than ever. You don't have to, every single person doesn't have to feel the pressure of building their own platform and channel, but just being a person that is a support to the people around you and another voice that they're not used to hearing. Even this man that came into my restaurant last night, he was sitting at the bar and I was putting out some glassware and he's talking to the bartenders and he was hyping up the whole, what about that whole, tips aren't getting taxed, or it was no tax on cash tips. First of all, we don't make that much cash tips. We usually just make credit card tips now, so we don't really claim our cash tips. No one has ever claimed our cash tips. But it's not nowadays everybody's paying on credit cards, so it's not even it doesn't make much of a difference at the end of the year anyway. But say people it gets telephoned, and so everything gets heard different and processed different. So I was trying to tell him, I'm I don't think that's good for us, because we can only be like we can only get a mortgage based on our taxable income. And what about all the programs that we need to pay into that we need the benefits of that come from our tax money? And all of that, like, it's not going to be good. And not to mention already the general public that's of that mindset and of that group, they're already tipping less, assuming that we don't have to pay taxes on our tips. And that's absolutely not true at all. We do definitely have to pay taxes. We make $2.13 an hour, so our entirety of our living comes from the tips. And we also have to pay the credit card processing fees for your credit cards. And every swipe, every person that's like, oh, can we split this 12 ways? That's 25 cents per card plus 3.25% of the total of your check that we have to pay out of our tips for your credit card processing fee. And we have to tip out all the support staff, all the bartenders, all the food runners, and all the hosts at the restaurant they get their own percentage of our total sales. So we need, and so the thing is, this guy was like, oh, well, I mean, people in, Seattle have found the blah, 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 blah. This guy is definitely not a server. He's not a bartender. He's never been in the service industry. And I'm like, dude, in Seattle, the general mindset and the political atmosphere is a lot different than it is here. And I was like, and people in Seattle tend to be more generous and sharing. And the people here of this political mindset and consciousness are a little bit more stingy and not sharing and not generous with others. They want to take care of themselves and the people in their immediate circle, and that's it. And he was like, well, and I was like, well, are you sure? I'm like, we literally immediately we saw a drop, a very specific drop in our tips. And he's like, oh, yeah. He's like, but they never even passed it yet. And I was like, it doesn't matter. Nobody's thinking about us. They don't care. It doesn't affect them. It doesn't affect them, so it doesn't matter to them. They're just making an assumption. So your voice, you being able to express and explain to people, even if it's not just general things in life, when you are able to articulate something to someone, they may not have ever thought about it before. And if I hadn't have said something, the two girls would have just gone on with it because they wanted to placate this guy so their tips would be good. But I'm like, well, I don't want to just pretend like everything's fine and just perpetuate this. I was like, I'm going to say something. I'm a person who says something. But, people who are not spiritual are starting to come around to want to be spiritual again, right? The north node of the moon is in Pisces now. And so Pisces is the sign that's the most spiritual and the most philosophical and in depth about spirituality and religion. And so I think people are really going to start going back to, wanting to have their own relationship with God and wanting to do the soul searching, and they want to know how to do it, but they don't necessarily know how to. And Christian culture and the norm of the church scene is palatable to the people who are already there. But if you're not already in the church scene, there's a reason. And you're like, I don't know if I can do this. So you can be a voice to the people around you. It was just the other night at work, we were talking about translations of the Bible, and it got us into this conversation talking about the original Hebrew words and how they're very significant and how each letter in the Hebrew word has a numerical value. And so the letters and the words themselves have numerical value and meaning and depth. And there's always layered meanings and layered depths to every, word that is chosen in the Bible. In the Hebrew text, the original divinely channeled text, not the human translation necessarily. Those have been a bit watered down because they're like, this is for a comfortable read. And it's like, it's not supposed to be an easy, comfortable read. This is an encoded text that has specific words that mean specific things for specific reasons. There's a magical system here that's happening where that specific word just so happens to have all of these other associations and reference points to it. And so when you're studying the Bible like that and you understand even a little bit about Hebrew language, Hebrew context, and Hebrew centricities and political context and social context of the time and everything starts to be a whole nother message and a whole nother story that you're reading. You're like, wow. Like how God changed Abraham's name from Abram to Abraham when he made the covenant with him to give him the blessing of the entire Israelite nation being born through him. He couldn't do that with the name Abram. It didn't have the right numerical value and the symbolism. But when they added that other letter, it gave the name deeper meaning, which gave him this ability to be able to do this. And it was just the change of one letter. But that's why the significance of people having their names changed, like Jesus calling people different names and God naming people different things, throughout the Bible, that has to do with that, right? And so all that matters. The little conversations matter. So, your healed heart, when you heal yourself, that teaches you how to help other people heal, how to teach them to heal their self. Even if it's just, oh, you know what, you might like this book that I read. It might help you out with this thing, or you might like this program that I have been doing. So it's not just, our healing isn't for us alone. Eventually in the awakening process, you're like, yes, this healing is making me a more calmer, and it's soothing my pain, so it's making me feel better. But it's not as much about that anymore as it becomes about, oh, I'm so glad that I'm not ignorant of that thing anymore. Like I used to be so unconscious, and I used to so insensitive. Like I wish I would have known better. And you're thinking, wow, I want to become what do I not know now? I want to become more conscious and more loving so that I don't cause more pain and death and suffering in the world. And I don't add to the negativity, and I don't add to the ignorance and the darkness, but that I help alleviate that and rid the world of that darkness. So your healing then becomes about bringing more good into the world and trying to avoid doing anything that would make it, any worse off than we are. Ooh, rest. We have a little snow happening right now, and if it gets icy enough, we get to close the restaurant tomorrow. And we're all so tired from Valentine's Day weekend that we're like, we don't want to be off work because we all need money, but we're like, we want to be off work. You've been working hard. Take a nap. Get some rest. Yes, we all need a Sabbath. And actually, that is one of the most magical tools that you can use for manifestation, is having a Sabbath day that you keep holy. That is literally the step of release in manifestation. When you're like, you know what? I have done all the work that I can with my hands and my heart and my soul for 6 days this week. So on the 7th day, just like the Creator, I will also rest. And so you put down the work and you relax and you rest and you get quiet and you tune into the soul and you take in some spiritual nourishment. And you spend time with those you love, but you do not do work. And that is a sign of trust. That is an act of faith. And it's honoring the Creator, because you're doing what the Creator would do, right? If you're like, I've got to work 7 days a week, 8 days a week, I can't stop. It's like, that's coming from fear and lack and this need for control and workaholism, right? But when you can take a break and when you can relax, that's actually practicing restriction. It's a form of restriction. So, and I know for me, sometimes it's hard to just take a complete day of rest where I don't do anything productive, because I always have to usually make a video for this channel at least, so you guys, rest actually enhances your spiritual bank account. It gives you magnetism. It enhances your progress in your manifestation, and it brings abundance. All right. And then I feel like we had, what was this one card? Oh, Father Healing. So Father Healing was our last whether it was in the lunation workshop or last week's manifestation reading, but father healing was the point of focus that was going to really help us actually manifest our desires. So your personal power increases as you give father-related issues to heaven. Now, the father wound, the way it manifests, the way that I've been learning, is that it can create shiny object syndrome, where you're like easily distracted and you can't stick with a task, or you can't stick with a project. You can't follow through. You're not consistent. You're not dependable. You lack consistency. You lack discipline. You lack commitment, right? What is a good father? Good father is consistent, disciplined, committed, always shows up. You know, you can depend on your dad, right? Reliable, solid as a rock. You know, you want your dad to be predictable. What happens when you've got a deadbeat father? They're unpredictable. They're in, they're out. They're not committed. They're not consistent. You know, they're distracted. They're not focused. They're not, they don't have the strength of character to like keep a job and those things. So you can see how this is manifested. If you have father wounds, it might make it hard for you to commit to things, or to stay focused, or to persevere, to learn how to stay determined and to keep at it, you know. It can cause like player syndrome, right, in the romance life. Like you might have commitment issues. But either way, like when you heal these things, it helps you become more dependable and disciplined and consistent in your actions that you take. The mother wound affects how we feel about ourselves and our emotional realm and what we'll accept and what we think we're worth. Whereas the father wound affects how we show up in the world and how we behave and how we act, right? So heal this, but that also connects to the fact that that might also have to do with the fact that we might feel burnout. So we need the rest. But once we get that good rest and we keep that rhythmic rest every week, that we give ourselves this cycle of on and off, not just on all the time. We get that rest, but then we learn now we need to be more consistent, more disciplined, more focused. It's so easy with all of the horrors of the world to get so distracted and focused and be like in a fog and in a low-level trauma response, freezing, ruminating, obsessing, distracting, avoidant, like everything but like focused work and like productivity and happiness. So do your best to hone that discipline, even if it's only for your own sake, for goodness sake. All right, you all, I hope this treats you well and serves you well. I guess we didn't really need to pull any tarot cards anyway this week. We went long enough as it is, but I hope you guys have all of your dreams coming true. Let me know in the comments if anything great happens for you this week. Also, I've been taking a poll to see who my audience is, more details about you guys. I'm trying to hone in my keywords so that people can find me in the search engine on YouTube. And so I, feel like this channel is about having your own personal spiritual practice and your own personal relationship with God, but also I feel like we're creating things and, we might be light workers, but I'm not sure, right? So who are you guys? Are you new subscribers? Are you old subscribers? What do you watch the channel for? What is it about the channel that you keep coming back to? Is it just that you like tarot readings? Are you into the spiritual wisdom that comes with these videos? What initially brought you here? Why do you come back? Let me know. I want to know also like what your guys' needs are. What are your pain points? What do you need help with? Like, what do you feel like you want more insight on? Is there like topics that you guys want me to discuss more? But let me know in the comments. I'm interested in hearing what y'all want and need. Right. Also, the 2025 prediction series is amazing. It is in the description box below. It will help you navigate through the year, but you will have channeled consciousness from me and a yearly overview with a Celtic cross reading. for our annual look ahead, and then there are seasonal readings for each quarter of the year, and then there are monthly readings for each month. And each video for each quarter, the yearly overview each month, they have journaling questions designed to help you workshop through and really get deep and get clarity and set your intentions and stay on in alignment throughout the year. There's definitely opportunities and challenges that we can prepare for ahead of time and be ready when they come along. So I think that this is a great tool to help you do that. It is only $10 in my Stand store, so you can access that through the link below. If you have trouble with the browser, try Chrome. All right, you all, that is all for tonight. I hope you have a good day tomorrow. I'll see you.